Authenticity is great, they say. It's that simple. Don't overthink it, just be yourself. And that's what I thought as well. Well, at least until I started university. But what if there's so many versions of you that are constantly changing and you don't really know which version that it is that you need to be authentic towards? This was me at the start of my university journey. I was this baby platypus. Can you see the fear in its eyes? It looks so lost, so confused. And that was me. I was so scared of moving homes, scared of switching countries, scared of not knowing how to make friends, and scared of not knowing how to fit in. Because, to be honest with you, for the longest time, friendships was something that just happened to me. Almost like finding a beanbag chair that works for you. You sort of walk into a store, you browse the ones around you, and then you find one that just feels right. You settle into it, and you feel like this was the one made just for you. Do you remember the story of Goldilocks and the three bears, where each bear had their own bed? Again, almost like it was the one made just for them. It fit perfect to their size and to their needs. Now imagine a modern day Goldilocks story. So she walks into a store and she's looking for a chair. Do you think she'd be sat there debating why the black 403 pine wood, why not the grey 330 teak wood? No, she'd just plop down and say, yes, this one just feels right to me. This is the one I'm getting. And then she'd never feel the need to try out any other chair. I think you can call this superpower intuition, whatever that means. Now, I'd always known my mom to be a very intuitive person because she spoke about it with great pride and confidence. And I always thought to myself, when will I acquire the superpower? How do I acquire it? Do I have to wait to be a mom? Because that's going to be a while away. So when my mom's intuition decided that coming to the UK to pursue a degree in economics was right for me, that's when I knew things are going to change. Things are going to now start looking different for me. Things are not going to be as comfortable as they have been. And when all 5 of my UCAS options said yes to me, that's when I knew I'm being shipped abroad. If you ask me what first year of university looked like for me, and if I had to describe it in one word, I'd say it was loud, so loud. And not just because my roommate had a very eclectic music taste, but because of the loud voices in my head. These voices were finally speaking to me. I feel like I've always had voices in my head. We all do. It's quite normal, isn't it? But back home, I never had to listen to these voices because all the voices around me were so loud, it was almost drowning everything else inside my head that was trying to speak to me, trying to get my attention. So that's when I found this experience so jarring that I tried to silence all these voices by stuffing it down with a chocolate bar, stuffing it down with food, trying to hide away from it, run away from it. Later that year, I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's a very common hormonal disorder that affects about 1 in every 10 women in the UK. And post that, I struggled a lot with anxiety and depression as well. And all of this, to be quite honest with you, was because I felt so unsafe. Not unsafe in the traditional physical sense that we think of, but in the psychological and emotional realm of being unsafe. Now, I had a very privileged upbringing in Dubai, which is one of the safest cities in the world. So I was quite safe in the physical sense. I felt safe in the walls of my house, but I didn't feel safe in the walls of my mind because I was constantly battling with thoughts in my head, thoughts that were trying to weigh in on me and bring me down, thoughts of not being good enough, productive enough, of being lazy, of not being pretty enough, of not being social enough, of not being smart enough. And to be honest with you, this was the state that I was in for most of my undergraduate degree. Well, at least until COVID hit and I had to go back home. And I felt so relieved because I felt like I was finally going to be safe. I felt like I was finally going to run away from all these voices trying to talk to me and get my attention. But something changed when I moved to the UK for the second time to pursue my master's degree at Warwick in humanitarian engineering with sustainability. And this was never part of the plan. It was quite a surprise for me as well. Now, I felt so alone during my master's degree, but what was new around this time was that even though I was alone, I was no longer lonely. Because this was the first time I let the voices in my head speak to me, the voices that had been desperately trying to get my attention, the voices I was trying to silence and stuff down with a chocolate bar. I let these voices be heard. And you know what? It wasn't half as bad as I thought it was going to be. I finally felt safe. I finally felt like I was enough. Now, what was different around this time, the second time that I moved to the UK, was that I feel like the thread that was linking me with the weight of other people's unhealed voices, of other people's unhealed opinions, of who I should be and what I should be, this thread had weakened the second time around. And I feel like I finally had the strength to plow through and filter through these voices. And what I found was that underneath lay my voice, my real voice, and it was quite gentle, it was quite easy on me, it was very kind. It was nothing like these mean, big, bully voices that were speaking to me earlier on during my undergraduate degree. And what I also realized was that I was never lazy when I said no to working on that finance job application. It was just never my passion. I wasn't being slow. I was just supposed to run in the wrong race, the race that was never meant for me. I wasn't being unproductive when I craved for moments of rest for myself. And finally, I wasn't being antisocial when I said no to certain friendships because I valued quality over quantity. So when I started realizing this and I started listening to my inner voice, to my intuition, I started feeling safe within myself. And once I started feeling safe, I feel like I was able to express myself creatively in ways that I had never done before, in ways that made me happy and worked for me instead of what worked and what pleased other people. And that's when I realized that creativity and confidence are the result of feeling safe. Not just in the physical sense, but more so in the psychological and emotional sense. Now, I am an economist, so I have to plot a graph to explain what my journey has looked like. And I've plotted authenticity on the horizontal axis, which represents moments where I was being true to myself, and confidence and creativity on the vertical axis, which represents moments where I was expressing myself in creative ways, in ways that made me happy. Now, it was mostly a positive relationship between these two with a few minor bumps. And my most pleasant experience was choosing this module called Design Thinking for Social Impact in my final year of my undergraduate degree in economics, when everyone else around me was choosing a finance or a business module. And to be honest with you, this module was my lifeboat. This module was the only place where I truly felt safe, where I felt like I could truly be my most authentic and creative self in a degree that was otherwise too black and white, too traditional for me. Now, I've spoken lots and lots about being authentic to yourself, but you can ask me, what about the whole fake it till you make it mantra? Does that still have a place in this journey? Or is that all just faff? And should we just completely block it out, cut it out? And I think it did to some extent in my journey. And this is when it happened. So I walk into a room trying to facilitate my first ever design thinking workshop, and I sort of go back to my baby platypus mode, and there's feelings of being lost and there's fright in my eyes, and I feel like I can't command a room. I've never been that person that can command a room, that can be in charge or be in control, until I did. And why that experience was so liberating for me was that it allowed me to create space for myself without having to feel that I needed to take someone else's space away to make my own. And I felt like I gave myself the time and the space to create, to experiment, and to fail. And how I knew I was being authentic in this process, even though there were moments of feeling like I was faking it till I made it, was that this whole experience didn't feel like an out-of-body experience. It just felt like I was changing suits, like this platypuses. Now, I've talked about the relationship and the impact that being authentic did on my creativity and feeling confident. But what I didn't realize until very recently is that being creative and expressing myself in ways that made me happy also had an impact on me being true to my inner voice and my inner self and being authentic. And let me give you a demonstration of how that worked out and played out for me. This happened when I was writing my first ever children's book on creativity and gratitude, drawing inspiration from everything that I had learned during this module on design thinking. And when I was writing this book, I had the first ever meeting I had with my colleagues, with my teammates, who are now friends of mine, was on deciding the characters for the book. You know, who's going to be the main character, who's carrying the story, which is so very important to me and now to all of us, embodying this story and embodying this creative spirit. And how can we make sure that kids aged 5 to 7 years old can all resonate with the story and feel like they're all creative individuals? We were thinking of characters ranging from the sun and the moon to cute animals like hedgehogs and badgers, and they all carried the story beautifully, at least in terms of how the manuscript read. Yet something didn't feel right to me. There was something that was missing. There was something that was not in tune. That click wasn't there. I wasn't quite having that Goldilocks and Three Bears feel, if you will. And that's when my teammate turned around and she said to me, why don't we have a brown girl carrying the story? Why can't it be someone that looks like you? And to be quite honest with you, I was very hesitant at first. And I told her, don't we have enough stories on Indian festivals with brown girls carrying the stories? This is too basic. How is this going to speak to people that aren't brown? How is this going to speak to people that aren't brown girls? And I really wanted to speak to all kids and not just kids that look like me. And this is Roshni, who is the main character of the story, someone that looks like me, someone with big, bold eyes and big curls, and someone I'd never dreamt of seeing visually in a book because I never had that growing up. This is when it occurred to me that creativity isn't necessarily about creating something brand new, creating something that doesn't exist, creating an amplified fairy tale version that is palatable to other people's tastes. It is about creating a space where you feel safe enough to be your most true self, to tell your story as is in the most Goldilocks way you can. Thank you. Yeah.